The first technique tip is to try and keep your hips close to the surface of the water. What's really common is people look too far ahead or too far below, and that naturally drops your hips down in the water. A nice way to cue this is to try and only look 2 to 3 meters ahead, and that's going to help you keep yourself nice and upright in the water. If your hips do drop down in the water, then that's going to increase the resistance that you have while you swim, therefore making you a slightly less efficient swimmer. The next technique tip is to address your stroke. Now this gets broken down into 2 phases, the reach to the catch phase and also the pull phase. The reaching for the catch phase begins as your hand leaves the water at your hip and comes up and over, and then re-enters the water as your elbow and shoulder straightens. During this time, you're going to be rotating through your shoulder and your trunk. Now this begins the catch phase. Another common mistake that we see with the reach phase is people's hands entering the water too soon. Now this is going to drop you down too low and increase the resistance before you start the pull down. So that's one of the things that you want to make sure that your hand is extending over the water and entering the water where you're closer to full reach. So guys, the catch phase is extremely important. It's the phase between when you've just reached and extended into the water, and it's right before you start the pull down phase. To have the most efficient catch phase, there's a quick checklist for you to do before you start the pull down in the water. As you're extending through the water, your fingertips should be lower than your wrist lower than your elbow, and elbow lower than your shoulder. You should also be slightly rotated, and this is going to make you more hydrodynamic, more streamlined, which is going to make you a more efficient and economical swimmer. So one of the most common mistakes we see with the catch phase is as people start to pull down, they haven't extended or rotated nearly enough. So this is going to make you wider and increase your surface area and increase the resistance of your swimming. So to improve this, you want to make sure you're rotating and extending to improve your catch position. The next phase of your stroke is the pull down. Now, one of the most common mistakes we see with this is your arm crossing the body. This is going to increase the resistance in your shoulders and the strength required to swim. It's also going to make you a less efficient swimmer. So the thing that I want you to focus on is as you start the pull down, you want to maintain a soft bend in your elbow, and you want to be pulling down directly towards the bottom of the pool. As your hand pulls down, you're going to reach towards your hip and then begin the start of your next stroke. As you're pulling your hand down through the water, keep your fingertips together. This is going to increase your pulling power and therefore make you a faster swimmer. So that's all 3 phases to optimize your swim stroke.
Now we're going to talk about the kicking part of your swimming technique. Now your legs only contribute to about 10% of the forward propulsion moving you through the water, but it's important to nail down a few quick tips. The first one is similar to what DB mentioned before. It's making sure that your hips are close to the surface. As they drop lower, the efficiency of your kick will reduce. Next up, we've got to think about how our hips and knees are actually moving. Now, a common mistake is that people think most of the power has to be generated with how hard they're kicking with their essentially bending and straightening their knees into the water, slapping the water and splashing to get them more forward propulsion. But the truth is we want less movement in your knees and more movement and power driving from your hip movement. Now we've got to think about your positioning of your feet and legs relative to the water as well. Now this differentiates between how fast you're trying to go. So in your sprinting efforts, you probably will be breaching the water a lot more to develop really short bursts of power. But for your usual medium to longer distance swimming, most of your foot and leg motion should actually be below the water because this will make you more efficient for those longer distances. Now our last quick tip with kicking is to avoid those big scissor kicks. Think about your kicking more as small oscillations through the water. Making sure that you do this will actually reduce the amount of time that your feet whack together or rub together as you're kicking, which will also improve your efficiency and improve your power through the water. Now, our next and probably most important point to consider is thinking about rotation as you swim. And this is rotation in both your trunk and your hips. If you think about those effortless swimmers you see down at the pool or even professional swimmers, what differentiates them from someone with poor technique most of the time is their ability to rotate. And that allows them to look so effortless and streamlined through the water. What makes this so pivotal to your swimming technique is it's going to tie together and improve all of those other aspects of your technique that we've mentioned. It's going to improve your reach to catch, it's going to improve your pull, it's going to improve the efficiency and power of your kicking, and it's also going to improve the timing of your breathing. If we think about about that first component of your technique, the reach to catch, what it's going to be doing rotating is actually going to be allowing you to extend your arm further in your stroke to develop more power as you then work into that pull phase. What it's going to do, it's actually going to optimize your loading through your lats and your back muscles as you start that pull phase, which is going to improve the amount of power you can generate. The next thing to consider with your rotation is that it's going to make you so much more streamlined. When you're rotating, what it's actually doing is reducing your surface area as you're moving through the water, which will reduce the amount of resistance and turbulence you're working against, which will make you go faster. So what you can see here, this first clip is going to show you minimal trunk rotation through the water. So it's a reduced reach and there's reduced power and efficiency. As you can see in this next clip, he's really rotating his trunk, which is allowing him to reach far through the water, develop a really good pull, and also making him more streamlined as he moves through the water. Now this one sounds very simple in theory, but it's an extremely tough skill to master. So just make sure it's always in the back of your mind when you're trying to improve your swimming technique.
The next technique tip is to focus on your breathing. Now to optimize your breathing, you want to perform it as you have reached in through the water and achieved the catch position. Once you're in this position, you're going to rotate your head away from the arm that's in the water, breathing through the outside of your mouth with one eye outside of the water. One of the most common mistakes with your breathing is that you rotate your head too far and lift your head out of the water. This is going to mean that both eyes are out of the water. To fix this, you want to focus on just one eye leaving the water and breathing out through the corner of your mouth. As you swim, you naturally are going to create a bow wave, which is going to allow for you to breathe out through the corner of your mouth without having to worry about swallowing any water. Another important note for breathing is to breathe out whilst you're swimming. This is going to make it much easier and quicker when you turn your head to take your next breath. Doing this properly is going to help keep your breathing under control. So guys, give these swim technique tips a go and let us know how you go in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year. We'll see you next time.